bring everybody to order and go ahead and get started with this board staff. I think we've got some great folks in the audience here, and Rich, I know you're going to introduce your board, so you're on.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, County Administrator, for having us here today. Today we're going to do Sleepy Hollow, talk about Sleepy Hollow Sports Park. So what I want to do is I'm going to briefly introduce our board and some of the staff that we have present, and then we did a board staff, I think I messed it up already. There we go. We did a board staff back in November, but of course we had a couple new Board of Supervisors that weren't here in November. So we're going to quickly go through that one we did in November, which is more of the overall operations, fuzzy bunny, good stuff. And then I'm going to go into a second presentation that's hard numbers. So that number one, I think, is more the reason that I'm here today, is to talk through what happened, where we're at, and where we're going. So that's what I plan to do here today. I am joined by 4 of our County Conservation Board members here today. We have Greg Lewis, Paula Feltner, Pam Mullenhauer, and Chuck Soderberg. So there are 4 board members here today, which means a quorum. And then we have a number of staff. So Kate Clark is not on staff, but she's from the County Attorney's Office and comes to our meetings all the time, knows us pretty well. We have Natalie McFarland, who is our senior accountant. We have Katie Stoklasser, administrative supervisor. We have Deputy Director Cami Rankin. We have Sam Lorton, operations manager, something like that, out at Sleepy Hollow. So the guy that knows where everything is out there. We have Jeff Condon, who is our leisure service manager and oversees all of that. And I think that's it for staff and board. So well supported today. And if I don't know, somebody out there will. So we're going to go over this first one here. It reminds us of where we're at and where we came from. It wasn't long ago, it was 2022, that we actually purchased Sleepy Hollow, and that was after like 2 years of negotiations. So it had, since COVID-19, it had sat, and then there was negotiations. Supervisor Hawkinsmith had initiated those conversations with Rick and Mary Flatt. We ended up buying it with the Polk County Board of Supervisors. In 23, we did the Snowflex installation. 24, it opened, and now we are in 25. So as I said, I'm going to zoom through this one. There's Supervisor Hawkinsmith right there. So after we built that Snowflex, we quickly staffed up, and everybody was going down the hill having a great time. And we started doing some other programming. So we kept things like we kept the State Fair camping, the Renaissance Fair, and things like that, and they were operated by a concession, and then we started some of our own events. I don't know why that keeps happening. It's probably me, right? And then it broke. So, of course, these are things you can't anticipate. We had the lift break, and you couldn't get people to the top of a hill, and that's a long hill to climb up to go down that Snowflex. So we had to end operations early. Of course, when that happened, all the people that we had hired, we had to let go for the season because we needed to fix this thing. And we also had a pond that wasn't holding water. So there was a lot of head scratching and gnashing of teeth there for a little while. We were closed in the winter last year, as we had anticipated to be, because Snowflex is a 3-season system. You don't operate it in the winter. It has a lot of water pipes. And that also saves on staffing. And the chairlift, by the way, is not operational. Our manager out there, Jeff Condon, he is a national expert on equipment and ran an operation, a snow operation in New York. And so we knew that wasn't going to work. 2025, and you'll see this, we did a lot of planning. So we have events that we've started to plan for and put in lights and speakers on that Snowflex hill. Not going to spend a lot of time on these numbers because future numbers in the next presentation are more relevant. So we did have a business plan that was done for us by a firm called SE Group, which are the best in the country at doing snow-type operations, and that's who we had do our business plan. We had from that some projections on what was going to happen with Snowflex and without the total snow operations, and then once we had it open. So we had some early projections on that. We've been moving forward with a fundraising effort, and then we also have been doing some other things, some thinking. So when you look at where Sleepy Hollow is in its proximity to the 4-mile mountain bike park and 4-mile greenway, there may be opportunities. We've been talking about things like mountain bike trails connecting the two, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, looking at a lot of year-round activities too. This is the existing lodge all spruced up. So as we go into this building of a new lodge, it likely won't be the existing lodge. We'll likely be building a new lodge, but that gives you a breakdown of that. And then we're going out for fundraising. So we had a professional feasibility study done. It showed that 10 million was a good target for a public and private campaign. We know that there's going to be infrastructure probably above that. So this is the breakdown of the fundraising that we're engaged in. The board is coming together really well. So we've got co-chairs, we've got a great board, we got Ellen Nelson with Funding Solutions. She ran our Easter Lake campaign, which we put in $400,000, maybe a little bit more. We raised 8.6 million. Our target was 8.1. So we've done this before, and we feel pretty good about where we're at. Timeline, here we are starting our fundraising campaign. We are open, and I'll talk about that in a little while, at Snowflex, and we plan to have year-round operations by 2027. So that was the November version. Now we go into a more boring version with a lot of the numbers on where we're at right now. So first of all, the pond is holding water. Finally, over the fall, winter, and early spring here, we put down this thing called bentonite, sealed the bottom. It's 3 times larger than it was before. It's a beautiful pond. We're creating a perimeter trail. We're working on the fishery out there, so growing some grass. So the pond is finally functional. Doing something, there we go. Programming. So of course we have the Renaissance Fair, but that's with the concession. We've actually started other programming out there. So environmental education programming, and everything we've done out there has been successful. So we are having lots of families from the east side that are really appreciative that we're actually having natural resources, environmental education programming out there. We're open. So Easter weekend, I think it was, we opened for snowboarding and skiing. You can't have tubes and snowboards and skis at the same time. So we're open for snowboarding and skiing every weekend now. And then Memorial Day weekend, we open for tubes. And then depending on what the schedule is, there'll be times for tubes and times for skiing and snowboarding. But we're open. The lift is working. Snowflex is working great. Everything's looking good. Concessions are open. There we go. Open for tubing Memorial Day weekend. We got bells and whistles, so we got lights and music, and we can have different themes and stuff like that. Our staff over the winter built some fun stuff, rails and jumps and things like that. We probably saved $20,000 by building all those in-house, and the ski boarders and the snowboarders and the skiers especially like that kind of stuff. So we got that going on. As I said, the fundraising is underway. We got some great committees built up, and the energy. By the way, that feasibility study that we did, it showed that we had a lot of money already committed just by those that were participating in the feasibility study. So the actual reach isn't $10 million. The actual reach is, I don't know, 4, something like that, which is really great that we had a lot of people that were ready to go on that. Now we get into the numbers. So you have this in your board packet that was prepared for you. I also have cheat sheets. These are one-pager cheat sheets that you can take with you when anybody brings up Sleepy Hollow, and you can say, I have these numbers. Okay, so let's review where we've been, where we're going. This was the acquisition. So when we first acquired Sleepy Hollow, the first chunk whoa. The first chunk was actually along 4 Mile Creek, adding to our 4 Mile Greenway. So, the flooding event of 2018, we worked with the city of Des Moines. We put up some of our bond money. They put up a lot more money. We put up $1 million. They put up 14 or something like that. We do a buyout of 300 properties, businesses and residences along 4 Mile Creek. These were homes, modest homes that had been experiencing 300-year floods in the last 10 years. And so we worked with the city in the buyout of those homes and deconstruction and taking away the utilities and roads and things like that, and creating a greenway through that area that is going to improve water quality. It's going to aid in flood resilience. There's just a ton of benefits. And so that 4 Mile Greenway, I could give a whole presentation on that, and it's been great. This is part of the 4 Mile Greenway. So our first purchase was actually along 4 Mile Creek to add to the Greenway. Then came the big one, where we bought the land with Polk County, 1.75 apiece, and we went and did that. And it wasn't just about the land, by the way. It was about the entire business. So it was all the existing infrastructure, the name, everything about that was how that came about. Since then, we have used bond dollars to pay for some other stuff, the Snowflex and the lift. When we made that decision, that was a business decision, knowing that our snow equipment was not operable. It was baling wire and duct tape. It wasn't going to happen. And plus, it was incredibly labor intensive. And we weren't going to come, Board of Supervisors, asking for 10 more people to move the snowmaking equipment at night so we could have snow. So we made the decision to go into Snowflex to get the money rolling, and built the Snowflex Hill, and then the pond and the pump houses. So when it says Polk County Conservation Water and Land Legacy Bond, I'll remind you too that this wasn't just the current bond. The 2012 bond, we used a portion of that, and then the 2022 bond. So that's the money, the initial investment that we both made. All right, since we've opened, how much have we spent? So this is operations and equipment cost. Now it's understood, and you'll see this later on, that this is an enterprise account. This is meant to make money, and so we knew that from the start. As we entered into the operational and equipment cost phase, we knew that what we were asking from and received from the Board of Supervisors was meant to be paid back. We get that. We're under those terms. Equipment costs, when we first started, we needed a lot of stuff that we didn't have. Things like the tubes and a pro shop and beginning concession monies and other things like that. We did a marketing campaign where we did an analysis and some beautiful marketing materials. So we did all of that. So if you add everything up all the way through 25-26, which is next year's budget, and thank you, on April 22nd, I believe that was passed, so we're good there. Everything total is a little over $7 million. Now, I will caveat that. You see a few stars up there. Those are important stars. When we closed last fall because of the breaking of the lift, we didn't need all the people anymore. So, of course, we didn't have them show up just sitting around eating sandwiches, right? We had to let a whole bunch of people go. So that actual number of the operation cost for 24-25 is going to be considerably less. It's going to be $500,000-$600,000 less than what you see up there right now. This is an important thing. I know when you had your open public meeting and you had the graphics up there and it showed this huge increase in conservation, these were 100 high school and college students that we were hiring to run the hill. And when the hill isn't open, they're not there. Now, if we did use that full 30 FTEs, which is 100, 120 part-times or whatever, we're all smiling because that means we're open and we're making money. But this last year, of course, we took a hit. That's not going to be as high. So this number is going to be considerably less than $7 million, but let's just operate off of that theoretically for now, that we've spent about $7 million that we know we're on the hook for. How much money have we made? So you look, since we've started, and this is state fair camping, events, Snowflex, concessions, Renaissance Fair, we get a portion of that and everything. This is how much we've made. I love that far right column, that's why I stuck it in. Look at the percentage increase that we've had from year to year. Now, it's been a bobble because it's a brand new industry, I know. but we have been increasing every year. For 25, 26, we're anticipating 1.3-ish million. And I think these are pretty firm numbers, so we're looking good. So you take all of that together, and then you come up with how much we have made over those 4 years to offset how much we have spent. Carry the math down. It's how much we've spent. It's how much we've made or project to make. And remember, that bottom number now, the 4.7-ish, is probably going to be more around 4, 4.2, something like that. Once we take off the actuals of how much help we didn't use, that number will be considerably less. Okay, so we get up to this point. We've spent a bunch of money. We've made some money. We're about 4.2 down. That was understood. This is all part of the enterprise business plan. You lose money, you break even, you make money. So where are we going? This timeline starts to lay it out. Now, we're going to have a challenge this next fiscal year, not 25, 26, that's in the bag, but once we start construction, 26, 27, because the construction activities themselves are going to affect our ability to make money. So right now, you'll see we got the timeline that we're going to be up to September of 26 is when we do our fundraising, design, engineering, put it on the street, get a contractor, we're on site. And then from September of 26 to December of 27 is under construction. Now that doesn't mean the whole site, where there might be things we can do along the way, but things like parking and entrances and utilities, there's a lot of complications there. We know we're going to be able to operate until construction begins. So when you look at revenues, you have July 1st to September 1st. We're going to make some money, stay fair camping. We should be able to do the rent and fair concession. But our expenses are going to be more than our income for next year. We're working on that. So I believe these numbers are conservative. So the expenses are high, the income is low. Hopefully we narrow that margin, but that's a conversation that we can have in October. I hope we're able to float this or to figure out ways to redistribute funds or whatever, but that's where we're at during our painful construction mode. Then we pull out of it. So this is a proposal, and this is not done yet, but this is largely based on things we've done already with the county. So we have the Jester Park Golf Course, and in 2018, 2019, we wanted to make major capital upgrades to that. It was time for us to bid that out. We had C Corporation that was the high bidder, if you will, on giving us back revenues. Plus, they wanted to do a bunch of stuff. They wanted to expand the clubhouse into a larger event space. They wanted new golf carts and a space to charge them, all golf carts and things like that. We thought that was a really good thing, and we said we need a new vendor. They're willing to put up this money. We want to do this with so the county in 2019 gave us $3 million loan. Now this is another enterprise account, the same as Sleepy Hollow. The terms of that loan, we got a 1% interest, which is very gracious, but then it was expected that we pay $300,000 a year for 13 years to pay it back plus interest. So that's actually December of 32 that it'll be paid off. But by doing so, we were able to get those upgrades. We've been steady on the payments, and we've been making a little bit money over the top of that, which helps us to run the golf course. So we've been using it for things like breaks in the line or new turf grass that was needed or lighting or whatever it was. So we use that extra money, not just enterprise-wide. It was just at the golf course on what we need to do to fix it. So that's what we did at the golf course. Here's what I would propose that we're going to be doing with the Sleepy Hollow. Now, I need to talk with Deb Anderson, too. Her and I haven't discussed this, but I think this is, and I've discussed it with a few of my staff, but not everybody, I think this is a pretty good estimate. So when we open again, when we have the snow operation, we have another Snowflex Bunny Hill, a lodge that has some type of a brew pub situation and concession in it like that, all of our measures show that $1 million of net a year is a very reasonable number. I actually think it's going to be probably 2 or 3 once this thing gets done, but let's just say it's $1 million a year. So if we get the loan, which we know now is going to be $4.5 million at the end that we're going to owe Polk County on this loan. If we propose to give Polk County $400,000 a year profit once we're open and 10% of the remaining pie. So after that first 400, which goes straight to the county, then you go 75 for the Sleepy Hollow Capital Fund, 15% for Polk County Conservation expenses, 10% for Polk County. If we made $1 million, Polk County would get $460,000 of that. $450,000 would go towards Sleepy Hollow Capital Fund and Polk County Conservation $90,000. So this would set terms that I believe would pay this back in a reasonable period of time. And the more money we make, the faster we pay it back. So I think that's my ending slide, and that's my big exclamation point is I know that there's been some dissension and some different, rumor mill stuff and Sleepy Hollow, it's tanking, it's No, actually, I think we're doing fantastic. This fundraising committee, they are just jacked and ready to go and out there making contacts already. The governor's office and Debbie Durham with economic development, they are very excited about this. When we looked at our funding models and how much we spent, how much we project to take in as an enterprise account, we're looking really good. Plus, on top of that, this is an important economic addition to the east side that they don't have over there. This is a regional attraction. When we get done, I bet we're going to have 200,000-300,000 visitors a year going with that. State Fair is excited, Pleasant Hill is excited, Des Moines is excited, and it fulfills our mission. It gives us a year-round outdoor recreation opportunity. So when I talk to business leaders, the head of principal, the head of EMC, the head of all these different places, they're telling me their number one concern is recruitment and retention of a viable workforce. This adds to that picture by attracting more young, well-educated, family-oriented people to move and stay in Polk County. So that's my final cheerleading I'll do. But I wanted to run you through these hard numbers to let you know that I believe this is a conservative and realistic picture. Open for questions, comments, rotten fruit.
Rich, thanks for your presentation. I do want to just direct our attention to the fundraising aspects of this and get a handle on the feasibility that you received and the advice that you received.
Certainly.
I think originally we talked about the campaign being 10 million. Is that still the number that we're trying to achieve? And when you talked about already having commitments or already having funders engaged, what does that look like? You indicated that changes the overall campaign ask.
It does. And so, and I'm going to look to somebody else to help me with some of these numbers, but when we originally did the feasibility study, we did it on $13 to $15 million.
Right.
The feedback that we received from the 36-ish interviews that we did was that was a little high, that we should cut it back, and that also we should take out the parts that weren't sexy for funders, no to do infrastructure and roads and stuff like that. So that's why we separated out. We settled on a model of 10 million. Now of that 10 million, what was the number? 4.5 million. So these are people involved in the feasibility study that we don't require them to make commitments, but we ask them questions. If we came to you or we came to your industry, what do you think is an appropriate number that you might be interested in contributing toward this? 4.5 million is what we got from that. The other monies, so we did have some lead on some federal monies. Everything with the feds is shaky right now. We know that. So we're not depending on that, but it doesn't mean we don't got our foot in the door if there are opportunities. the Department of Economic Development, that's probably not what the name of it is anymore, Debbie Durham in her office and the governor's office, we've had multiple conversations. Destination Iowa, we've already benefited greatly from that. This one here is next in the queue, and they are very excited about supporting this. So the 4.5, and then the state money, Fed money, who knows. So our actual goal is 5-ish million of new money. It's going to be in quiet phase until probably next spring. So this is, where you go and you work with the different institutions and meet with their leadership and their granting mechanisms, and you secure gifts. We brought a designer on, OPN, is going to be approved, hopefully, at our next board meeting. And with the designer now starts coming some preliminary design. So we'll have the adoptables. So who wants to put their name on the lodge? Who wants to do this or that and the other thing? So all of that is coming together nicely. And I think I hear about like fatigue within the philanthropic community or other needs that are pressing, and I agree, right? Housing and food insecurity and stuff like that, totally agree. But I do believe that support for this is still strong, that we're going to make our goals.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Rich, I have a question. This is Angela.
Certainly.
So, let me understand this right. So you're asking the board to loan you $4.5 million. Is that correct?
No, that is money that was already spent from our operations since we purchased the land, that we believe that we have liability to pay back the Board of Supervisors. So other than this 25-26 budget that just went and was approved, we don't believe we're going to need any more, except for let's keep the telephone line open on what happens during that construction season. There might be a small ask depending on how the numbers shake out. We might be fine. But that 4.5 is money already spent or allocated through the 25-26 year.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
If there was a shortage, instead of that small ask, couldn't you use your bond?
Well, sort of. So maybe. The bond has very specific restrictions. So we can't pay salaries through the bond, straight up. So if we are able to set aside salaries and pay our bills first with that, and then looking at what operational monies that we have, we may be able to pinch hit some of those things with bond or other funding sources that we have.
Since you brought up salaries, I had that question written down. Once it's built out, what do you anticipate it taking for staff? And can you cover that with your Sleepy Hollow Capital Fund, or can you cover it through the operations of the venue?
That's the plan. Fair question. So we built this staffing model on bare bones operation to get up and going. So we've got Jeff and Sam. We got a ranger because we need law enforcement and EMS response abilities out there. We have one full-time everything. Adriel, she does administration, marketing, communications, all of that kind of stuff. And then I believe we have 3 permanent part-time. And those 3 permanent part-time are what we have to largely maintain the whole place. So regardless of what happens with this operations, we own a huge park, and there's regular maintenance required with that. So that's all that we have on staff right now. Now, let's say and that's all we plan. So we build it, we open, and we're wildly successful, and the money's coming in. At that point in time, 26, 27, 28, we may come back and say, we're so busy, we need another full-timer to do this. We're going to pay for it out of this within the enterprise account. I don't anticipate having to come to the Board of Supervisors for any additional FTEs outside of enterprise account income.
Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I've got an easy one for you, hopefully. Tell me about kind of your thoughts on the Southeast Connector and what that's going to look like when that's completed, as far as what that'll do for Sleepy Hollow.
That's an interesting question. So that Southeast Connector and some of the other things going on around there too. So, as MLK, the extension happens, we've been talking with the city a lot about Dean Avenue too. Because if you've been out there and you drive on the south side of the State Fair going out to Sleepy Hollow, that road is awful. Has terrible sight lines, doesn't have any shoulder. So we've been talking a lot with the city, and I'm looking forward to discussions with the DOT on what that looks like as far as affecting our operations. It's going to be nothing but good, right? It's going to facilitate better traffic flow no matter what happens out there. So we want to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking the visibility and also the more of a direct route, you know,
Yeah.
like kind of comments I'm currently hearing is like, it's kind of like a local Italian restaurant around here, down through the woods and over here and around. That this
Yeah.
is, Southeast Connector will provide more of a direct visible access for you guys.
And we've seen that with various parks. So when we got that first 2012 bond and we started updating these various parks, a lot of these parks were neighborhood parks. So the people that lived within a quarter, half mile knew of those parks and went to them. Once we improved the amenities within those parks, they became regional parks. And we went from 50,000 visitors a year, 75, to 200, 250. You know, last year, I think we stacked up 3.8 million visits to our parks and trails, which for a county leading the way, I mean, that's just amazing for a county our size to have that many visitors to our parks and trails. And I do agree that this is going to make this more of a regional attraction. When we did our demographic analysis, so you look at who's going to come and then why they're going to come, but who's going to come, they look at the different circles and the population demographics within those circles. We are largely aiming at young families with children and young adults that are thrill-seeking. Those are the two big groups. There's going to be a bunch of others too, but those are the two demographics that we're aiming at. And I think additional transportation and smoother, more convenient, easier transportation is only going to benefit us.
So 18 months from now will be January of 27.
Right.
What will be opening day as it relates to Sleepy Hollow? Will there be a new lodge?
So let me play out the dates. If we're aiming at Christmas of 27, right? So January 27 will be utter destruction.
Okay.
There won't be much of anything there. We might not even be able to operate snowflakes. But Christmas of 27 is kind of our target. If we make more money faster, it might be sooner, but probably not. It might be a little later. But when we're up and running and we've got 2 snow hills with modern ski lifts, snowmaking equipment that we can run from our iPhones in the middle of the night if we need to, an additional bunny hill that is going to be a snowflex type hill. So it's a round hill again. When we have all of those capacities, that's where I think that $1 million of net income a year, we're going to blow that away.
So we're really almost, so we're 20, we'd be about 20 months away from really starting.
From having full snow operations, full lodge operations, yes.
And lift.
Yep, and lifts.
So there'll be a lodge, a lift, snowmaking capacity, all of it ready to go. We're about 20, we'd be about 20 months out today.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Until then, we're gonna open up as much as we can. We're gonna come close to breaking even. We're gonna have some year-round programming, but it's after that the money really starts to roll.
So 27 is the hardest year financially because of the demo and the construction and the challenges around, doing all of this. So
That is correct.
So that might be kind of a dead year. Okay.
That's gonna be a dead year as far
Yeah.
as income, yes.
Okay.
Well, dead-ish. We're gonna go as far as we can possibly go to operate Snowflex for as long as we can after State Fair camping, and then, because that's a non-income producing time anyway, and it'll go into the next year, but we hope to get as much as we can before we have to close the doors and just go full-on construction.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Mary, you're also new to the table. Any questions or thoughts on your end that we should be taking into
No,
consideration?
I'd like to look at the board packet, but I don't have any based on the presentation.
Okay.
I think what would be helpful to me, this cheat sheet is really good, by the way, Rich. What would be helpful for me is just to all of this be analyzed by Deb Anderson from a funding perspective, cash needs, when cash would be needed, at what points in the project, and just kind of, if we could follow that up, Frank, that would be helpful with Deb, just to try to get a timeline and an understanding of what would be required of this board to implement this strategy. I mean, to me, it looks like a good strategy. The waiting is the hardest part, as they always say, in anything construction related. But I think the fact that you've put a team of fundraising experts together, you've done the feasibility, you've written a good business plan, you've forecasted what your needs are going forward, you've suggested a payback model for the actual economic development fund. I think all of that makes sense to me, and from a funder perspective, I think this is going to be an amazing amenity once it's constructed, and I do think there will be great interest in the community. I think the larger question that Jill and I had when we talked about this originally is the footprint. Do we really believe in the footprint of this being big enough from a scale perspective to make this kind of investment and payback? And that's where your business plan has indicated that's the case.
That is the case, and we're living in the world that as it is and not as we want it to be. Now, that's not to say we're not poking around. So there are some other opportunities that I'm working with other developers and the state fair, and to see if there are opportunities to expand some of our footprint over there. Not coming here for more money or more people, but when you look at Sleepy Hollow at 4 Mile Mountain Bike Park, so Pleasant Hill, Des Moines, just north of Copper Creek Lake, and then you got University. South of University, there's a property, we call it the Meek property. Alice Meek used to own it. Now we own it, and the WRA is doing a bunch of work to help us offset a bunch of the cost. Below that is a piece of property owned by Pleasant Hill. And Pleasant Hill isn't doing much of anything with it. They thought originally that they might use it for soccer complexes and stuff like that. They built those elsewhere. So Pleasant Hill is very interested in our proposed footprint, and that's along 4 Mile, by the way. And then there's a couple of other properties between us and Sleepy Hollow. And we're working with the city of Des Moines, some developers, a couple of landowners on possibilities. Now, if we do that, by the way, if we invest in an acquisition in that direction, that will be our conservation board that acts toward that. Won't be coming back to the supervisors for more money to make that happen. That would greatly enhance our business plan. But I will emphasize, we are dealing with the world as it is. And so everything that I've told you here today is based on the current footprint. If we get bigger footprint, that makes it even easier. But
Well, and if I could comment, Rich, just since last week when you and I talked, you and your team have put together a great mix of your pictures and your numbers, and I truly do appreciate it. You did a great job, I think, with bringing us the information that we needed for today, so thank you for that.
thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, and I appreciate the service of the Polk County Conservation Board and all they do on behalf of Polk County in this volunteer role. That's really a big job. Both Jill and I have served on the Conservation Board. I served for 5 years. I think, Jill, you served for 7. So we appreciate you being here and taking time out of your schedule on this important project. So thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.